Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Celia Alves, and we are live for a Snap Reports class. This is where we learn how to get our Excel reports easy to get ready. Every time we need to repeat the same report, we want it to be an easy process, a fast process, and with a professional and accurate result. And there's a lot of things that we can learn for that to make that happen. And in these classes, I will try to teach you a little bit of what I know every time, because in fact, that's what I've been doing for the most part in the past few years. I've been helping companies to streamline their process of automating their reporting processes. So I hope you find value in these classes today, either if you are watching us live or if you are watching later the recording, that's fine. Feel free to leave your comments, to leave your questions. I love to hear from you. If you can hear me well, please feel free also to leave a comment below so that I can know that sound and image and everything is getting to you in the correct manner. So we have Frederick. Hello, Celia. Thank you, Frederick, for joining us today. And we have Wayne Edmondson. Hi, Celia. Thank you for putting on this training. Thank you so much, Wayne. It's a pleasure. It's my pleasure to be with you here. Almost the last year of the year, and hopefully next year I will be able to make these classes more consistent in terms of scheduling. Thank you for letting me know that everything is clear on YouTube, Wayne. If anyone is watching us from Facebook, let me know if everything is getting to you in a clear manner. Okay, so today what I thought of telling you would be about those times when we are asked to compare two lists of data or two sets of data. And in this case, I'm going to say the word list, and we are going to use Power Query. But in fact, technically, a list and a table in Power Query are two different things. So keep that in mind. But in our daily conversation, many times we say lists just to refer to a column of a table. And that's what it is. In Power Query, a list can be interpreted as a column of a table. We will be comparing tables. We will be comparing sets of data. So I may be using these different words to mean the same thing interchangeably, but so that let's not get the intention here is not to get too technical, but more to get to you and help those who are taking the first steps with Excel and Power Query maybe. So we can have different situations when it comes to compare lists. Maybe we have two reports generated from two different sources, or we may have a database and a different report coming in every now and then, and maybe we want to know what is. Let's imagine lists of names, customer names, for example. That's in fact what we will be using today. What are the names that are in one list that are not in the other one? Could be one of the circumstances. Another circumstance is what are the names that are common to both lists, so they exist in both lists. That's another situation that can happen. Or maybe we want to keep all the names in one of the lists and find the related information existing in the other table for those names that we have in the first list. So we are going to see how we can address these different types of situations, these different requests. And for that, what we will use is a tool called merge. So merge queries, merging. It exists in Power Query inside Excel. and that's the tool we are going to use today. In some circumstances, and probably in all of them, you might be able to address the same request using Excel formulas, for example. The big thing about Power Query is that if we use, when we create a query with Power Query, the process is repeatable. So every time we make changes, every time we have a new report coming in with updated data, we just need to run the report, click one button, and that's it. And we will get, if we set up everything correctly, if nothing different happened with our data, then no different, nothing changed with the columns, so the structure is the same, then we are good to go. And that's the purpose here, is to learn how we can make our reports easy to reproduce every time we need to run them again. Okay, so I hope this is useful for you. Let's see. So some information, some details that I wanted to share with you. Let me share my screen, and I want to tell you a few things. Let me just change the setting here on my screen so that I can read everything for you, show you what I have to show you. And let me bring, just a second. How is everything over there? Where are you watching us from today? Let me know here in the comments, and I'll get back to your comments anytime soon, okay? So I hope you can see my screen well. Maybe I should make this a little bit bigger. So these two are the two sets of data that I have to work with you today. As you can see, they are very small sets of data, and that's on purpose, because like this way we will be able to compare them well, to really see what's happening, and that's the purpose. But of course, Power Query, as you might already know, can deal with thousands and thousands and even millions of rows. So what we are going to do here today with just 10 or 15 rows could be 10,000 and even 10 million rows. Make sure that you have a good machine if you are working with a large set of data, because sometimes these merging operations, especially if we are doing some kind of aggregation, summing and things like that, can be tricky, can be very heavy if we have a big, a very large set of data. Otherwise, you will be fine. It will work very well. The important thing is that the concepts are exactly the same. It doesn't matter if we are working with 10 rows or 10,000 rows. So we have Wayne from California and Frederick from Ghana. Thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, so let's see, what else did I have here? I wanted to, so I alerted you that we are going to work with very small sets of data. And it's also here, for example, we can see that they are not what we would very like the same thing we would have on a real situation, in the sense that, for example, the client or the buyer, which will be the same thing, they only appear with the first name. Usually we would have a full name, maybe first and last name, that could be in separate columns or together in one column. We could also have, instead of names, we most likely would be working with client ID, like numbers or some kind of reference codes to refer to the client, so that each one has a unique ID number. And that's what happens usually, and that's what should be, because of course we can have two or more people with the same name, and to make sure we are not associating information that belongs to different people as if it was for the same people, the same person. We want to have those ID numbers. Again, the idea here is to go through the different techniques of merging two tables in Power Query. And for that reason, I chose to work with names and just one first name and very small sets of data so that it's easy for us to spot everything that look at one table, look at the other table, and very easily be able to see what's going on and to compare and see what the results that we are getting from Power Query and see audit if we are getting the correct result or the result that we were expecting. Okay, so other things. I told you about the differences between a list and a table in Power Query, so keep that in mind. I'll be using the two words as if they were the same thing, but technically they are not the same thing. I'm looking at my summary of the class, so to make sure that we don't forget anything. Okay, so I wanted to show you the different requests that we are going to address here today. Going to put them all in a black color, and then we go one by one. So we have two sets of data here. One is supposed to represent a sales report where we have an invoice number, a buyer name, and the total amount. And let's imagine this report comes to us every week or every month, for example, every month. And on the other table, in the other table on the right side, we have a client database. So a list of clients with the client names that should be the same that we have on the left. And some information about these clients. Of course, this is fake data, address, city, state, email, and married, yes or no. And we may we may want to compare these lists in different ways. So here are the situations that we are going to see today. First one, let me put this bigger maybe. We may be asked to get the email address for each client who made the purchase. So we have a list of clients that may or may not make a purchase this month, and we have a list of those who bought something from us, and we want to know who from those who made the purchase. We want to get the email address. Maybe we want to send them some kind of thank you note or a follow-up email with their purchase. So we could get that kind of request, and we will see what happens if for some reason a client shows duplicate on our database. We will see what happens in that situation. We could also be asked to see who are the new clients. So we have a database of clients that we are updating this. We don't know how. So another thing that I wanted to tell you is that on a real situation, these two tables and lists will not be in the same Excel file together side by side. So on a situation, on a work situation, we most likely have to connect our Excel file to a client database, or maybe our client database is a table in Excel. And we would have the report coming probably from an accounting program or an online sales platform. We would have that report coming from another place, and we would have to create a query to bring us that information. Again, the purpose today is to just understand the different types of merging queries, query merges. So the idea here is to take away some steps that could make our class very long. So we are going to imagine now that both tables are in the same file, just to make it easier for us today. Other requests that we could get to compare lists could be which old clients made a purchase. So from the clients that we already had in our database, who of those made purchases this month? Not sure if I mentioned number two. Number two was who are the new clients, those who made purchases but that we don't have them yet on our database. Another situation could be for each client in the database, what was the total purchase amount this month? Another situation, which of the old clients did not make a purchase? So here was who made the purchase from the clients that we already had from previous months, and from those clients as well, who did not buy anything from us this month. And lastly, we will see how can we create a list of all the clients combined, both those that we already have in our database and those who might be new clients that are not in our database yet, but they come in our list of sales. Okay, so let's put this in white for now, just to keep track of things. And we will talk about this one first. Get the email address for each client who made a purchase. Okay, so are you ready? Let me know. Before we start with Power Query, I will have something here to show you. So it's just a way of representing the idea of merging the two lists. In one hand, we have the sales report, and these are all the names that we have there. In fact, if you noticed, some of the names are repeated, are duplicate. For example, Anna and Brian, they show twice in this list. I think no one else shows twice. And we have two names here. So Jack and Karen. Jack also appears twice, but Jack and Karen are the ones that are not showing here. So I'm already telling you what is going to happen in terms of the comparison, the results that we will get. We can also, it's for to make it easier for us, I also made the names starting alphabetically A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the first letter of each name, and then we have J and K here. So just to make it easier for us to study the different examples. Yes, Celia, we are ready. Good to know, Frederick. Thank you. Okay, so ready we are. Let's go. So let's put these names here. All these names belong to. Have you used Paint? I've been using Paint since, I don't know, since I started using a computer in the early 90s, and for a long time it was the only drawing painting tool available, and I still use it till today for simple jobs. When it comes to drawing something very quickly, many times is the tool that I use. Okay, so we have Anne, Brian, Carl, Dennis, and so forth. Everyone is inside the client database. So they are the list that belongs to the client database. Okay. But some of them also belong to the sales report list. So if we do something like this, let me make sure we get everything. Okay. I need to select transparency. It's not giving me transparent selection. Why not? It should be. Transparent selection was selected. Now it's not. That's too bad. Okay, there we go. So there's an intersection between the two sets. Some names will be inside the two sets at the same time. So for example, Anna, let's delete it from here. She's in there. So we can bring her inside here. In this way, she will belong in the two sets at the same time. It's a name common to sales report and the client database. Then we have Brian, Carl, Dennis. All these names also belong to the sales report. Then Eleanor and Faith, they don't show up in our sales report list, so they will stay in this area here. Just belong to the client database, they don't belong to the sales report list. And then we have Jill and Jack. Jill and Jack, or not, or only Jill. Jill belongs to both lists, the same, so in that area. And then we have Jack twice, we need to delete this. Here we have Jack and Karen that are in the sales report, but they are not in the client database. So in this diagram, we can see that, hi Pratna, nice to see you here. Thank you for joining us. So here we have the three sets, main sets, but we can, in fact, think of more than three sets here. So let's paint in yellow. We have the names that only belong to the sales report are those in the yellow area. Then we have the names that only belong to the client database. Those are the ones in the blue area here. And of course, if we cross yellow and blue, we get green. So the names here are common to both sets. But if I want to think of all the names that belong to the sales report, then I need to bring together the yellow and the green. So yellow and green represent the set of names that belong to the sales report. Green and blue represent the names that are in the client database report. And green, the names that are common to both. Yellow, the names that are only in the first set. Blue, the names that are only in the second set. Why am I going through this trouble and maybe bothering you if you are more acquainted to using Power Query? I'm trying to help those people who are still taking the first few steps in Power Query, and it's very important to understand this concept. The two tables, the two sets, and the way they can cross, they can intercept each other. And believe me, it's not always easy to decide when we are solving a situation in our work to decide which one of the sets we want. Sometimes, depending on how the question is made, depending on how we have our data set up, depending on how we are interpreting the question, sometimes it's just our focus that day. It may be sometimes tricky, a little bit difficult to understand, to really choose what is best for our situation. If we go here, I have a list of all the different joins. I will show you these joins in a minute. And in Power Query, when we are doing the merge between two tables, we have a setting where we get to choose the join kind. To choose the join kind, when choosing the join kind that we want to perform, we have 6 options. These 6 options here. Let me copy this and bring this over to here. Oops. It's very small there, but we'll see if we can enlarge this. Okay, so we have left outer. We will use the left outer join when we want to keep all the entries from the first table matching from the second. All from the first, in this case, Jack and Karen, and see if there's a match. No, sorry, all from the first, you see, it's tricky. All from the first is Jack, Karen, Aaron, Anna, Brian, Carl, Dennis, and Jill, and see who of those have a match in the second table. So those who have a match are the ones in the green area. So in this case, if we are in a situation like that, we will use the left outer. Please note that here we have all from first matching from second. What is this first and second? It's first table and second table. So these could, in this situation here where we are, The first table would be I'm going to put it here at the top. The first table would be the sales report. Let me put it black so that you can see, or maybe even blue so that it matches. So first table, it could also be called the left table. So if you hear someone or on a situation where some kind of programming is being used, it can be called first table or left table. The word table disappeared. That's fine. We can also, so if we are looking at a situation where we want to keep all the names that exist in the second table, so those would be all the names in the blue and the green areas, and finding the matching information that we might have about these people on the first table, then we will be looking at the right outer join kind. So the second table here would be the, where can I get text? Oh, text is there. Okay, so the client database will be called the second table, or you can also call it the right table. Okay, two ways of referring to the same table. Both work, both mean the same thing. And so forth. So then we have, what if we want to work on a situation where in the result that I want after merging the two tables, I just want to keep the names that are on, let's say here, let's I was going to jump to the second last example. Let's go in order so that doesn't get confusing. So we saw the first and the second, full outer, all rows from both. So we could also have a situation where I want to join all the names together. It doesn't matter if they have a correspondence on the second table, on the first table. So that's another situation. In that case, we will be using the join kind full outer. Finally, not finally, next we could also have a situation where we just want to keep the names that are common to both lists. So in that situation, we will be using an inner join kind. And the two last situations, left empty, only those names that appear in the first rows, only in first or left table. So if the name appears on the second, I don't want to keep it. And similarly, we could have a right anti-join kind where I just want to keep the names that appear in the second table. Okay. So let me close this. Let me share my screen here. Let me come up here. Wyatt. How are you, Wyatt? Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us for this class at the very last minute here in the year. I'm just going to save my file here, and then we are going to get our hands on Power Query, Excel, and all that. Okay, just finishing saving my file here. Okay, so we will go now to Excel, and let's see what's going on here. Let me go back to just my screen. If for some reason it's too small, let me know, okay? And I'll try to zoom in for you. Okay, so let's look at our first request. Get the email address for each client who made a purchase. So the first thing we need to do is to create a query for each one of the tables, okay? Let's click on the first table. We already have these in the format of Excel table, which is very important. If you don't know what is an Excel table, I really encourage you to Google and find information about Excel tables, what they are and what you can achieve with them. Not the topic of our class today, but I'm glad to help you if you need help later, okay? So first request, I want to get an email address of all the people who made the purchase here. Okay, so the first thing that, as I was telling you, I need to create a query for each one of the tables. Let's go to data, and then I can click in one of the first table. So remember, this will be our first or our left table, and we will go from table/range. Can you see it there, up there? Let me know. So here from table/range, that's the button that we want to use. Um, when we do that, we open Power Query Editor. And because our data, so on a real situation, we would have to go through our report and choose the columns that we want, make sure they have the correct data type, make sure that we don't bring any columns that we don't need, um, clean any errors, any rows that we don't need as well. In this situation, like I mentioned, our tables are ready just for the purpose of us now studying the merging join kinds. So all we need to do is it already created the step source and change type. So let's just check. It decided that the invoice would be a whole number. Usually I would make these a text data type because we are not going to make calculations with the invoice number. The buyer is text and the total amount is decimal. That's fine. We could also use currency. Both work in this situation. And now we are going to do close and load too. Very important. If we don't need to bring the data into our Excel file, because in this situation we already have the data in there, so we don't want to usually the default steps, the default setting of Power Query is to bring us a table. I already changed that default in this work profile. That's why I was using the other profile where things are more standard. But anyway, so we are going to choose only create connection because I don't need to bring the table again, okay? And click OK. I forgot to change the name of the query. So the query was named automatically by Power Query as table 1 because if we come here to table design, when we click on the table, we can see that the name of the query here was the name of the table was table 1. So because I didn't choose a name for my query, Power Query automatically named it table 1. But to make it easier, we can right click and do rename, and maybe we want to call it sales. Okay. The same way we are going to create a query that refers to the second table. So just click on the table, and in the same way we did before, let me try to bring this out of here. Trying to imagine one place where it doesn't bother us. This table is named table 2. We can name it. That's a way we can change the name, and then our query will be named after. So let's call it clients or client database, and enter. So now, of course I cannot have spaces. Client database, that's the name of my table. I can have spaces in the query names, but I cannot have spaces in the table names. So click on the table data and get data from table/range. It brings the information into Power Query Editor. Again, it already created the step change type automatically. We can go through it. Client name, client is text, text, everything is text, and it's fine. So we just have to go and close and load to. Always choose close and load to the first time so that you have the opportunity to choose the best option for the situation you are working with. In this case, we only want to create a connection, and okay. So now we have two separate queries. And finally, let's get to the point of this class, which is merging the two tables. Okay, I want to get the names, the email address for each one of the people who made the purchase, but the email address is on the second table, not the first one. So how can I do that? I can come to data, get data, and combine queries, and then merge. And in here is where we get to choose our tables. And it's very important the order in which we choose them, first and second, because depending on the column that we put first and second, then we need to choose the correct join kind. And if we switch them, the join kind to choose may need to be different, okay? So let's always in this class choose sales first and client database second. Next thing we need to do is to create a connection, or not a connection, indicate how I will Power Query be able to see what are the common names in this case into the two tables, and how it can find the related information from the second table to the first one. And that is done by indicating which column in the first table corresponds to which column in the second table. So the buyer, they don't need to have the same name. In the first column, we have the names in a column called buyer, and in the second table, we have a column called client. We just do like that. They get highlighted, and this way Power Query knows that these are the columns that have the same information, the same type of information. And here is where we finally get to choose the join kind. So in this situation, we want to keep all the names from the sales from the first and keep a matching information from the second table. So that's the left outer join. The left outer join is the default when we are merging two queries, and you will see that it is similar to do a VLOOKUP. Some of you might already have thought, well, I could get the email address with just creating a VLOOKUP formula or an XLOOKUP formula. And that's correct. The Power Query advantage is that once you do this once, the next time you don't have to recreate your formulas to make sure the formulas get to the bottom of your table, because Power Query will take care of all the rows of your table. It doesn't matter if it is 10 rows or 100, 1,000 or 1 million rows, okay? So let's move on. Here, if I leave this, there's this setting here that we usually don't use, but I'm going to leave it there for now so that you can see the result. Not this setting. What am I? So let's see. Oh, it's not here. Never mind. Just confused here. Never mind. So let's do okay. It was just telling us how many rows were matched. We get now an extra column to our table, and the column gets the name of the second table we had, the client database, or in fact the second query. And if we click not on top of the word, but in the cell that says table, we can have a preview of what's going on in there. So it's a cell that contains a table. And for each row, it contains the piece of the table that matches the name Dennis. If you see here Dennis, we have there Dennis, and we have, if we go here, we can see that this is the piece of the second table that relates to the same name Dennis, okay? So how can I want to extract the email address, so only one of the columns. The way to do that is to go here, by going here, and here now I get to choose which columns I want to bring over and put together with the columns that we have in our first table. Okay, in this case, I just want the email address. And the other check mark I got confused before was this one. So if we usually we don't want this here, or for me at least, in most of the situations I've worked, I very rarely wanted to keep the original column name as prefix. But I'm going to leave it now this time so that you can see what that does, in case you don't know it yet. So let's go do OK. And here we have all the client names that we had, our list of invoices and the client names, the total, so the same columns we have in the first table, and then we brought from the second table the column with the email addresses. And those names that didn't have a match show us a null result. And we are going to take a better look at this because there's something that we need to take care here. The name of the query, I'm going to call it request 1, rec 1. Okay. Close and load to. In this case, I'm going to load this as a table, and let's try and put the table in an existing worksheet. Let's put the table here. Okay. So we have the 3 queries. Let's close this pane here. Let's see what's going on. So it says that Jill, Jack, Karen, and Jack again, they don't have an email address. But in fact, we had Jill here, right? But what's happening? What is causing us a problem? Problem is that Jill here is with lowercase, and here with uppercase, lowercase and uppercase. And Power Query is very picky, and it's case sensitive. So every time it sees the same word in different casing, it thinks it's a different thing, and sometimes it is. In this situation, it isn't. So there's a few steps that we can take here to solve the situation. One would be, of course, to come here and correct the name, but on a real situation, the real world, if the list is very long, we may not be aware. We may not see it right away that that name was not correctly with the correct case. So what can we do? The best thing to do is to think of all the things that can happen. We know where the data is coming from. And when we know that there was human intervention and that this type of mistakes may have happened, then we need to be careful and try to minimize these errors. So we can address that in our queries. One thing to do is double click in the first query, and after the last step, we can come here to the buyer and make sure that we always have the same casing in all the names. So for example, in this case, make sure we can use here in the transform and then format. Where is it here? Format. Make sure that we use capitalize each word. And this way, everything will be transformed and everything will be standardized. All the names will follow the same rule, okay? So now we just need to do close and load and do the same thing here, the second table. And let's go to the client. Another way of getting that option is right click, and then it should be, cannot see anything today, replace. Transform, there we go, and capitalize each word. So if in this case everything was, all the names were capitalized, first word, each word, but just in case, if we introduce this step now, from now on, we will be sure that everything will be taken care of in regards to this. Other things could be done. If you are afraid, or you can foresee the situation where maybe people are typing in and they will possibly create extra steps at the end of the name. If that happens, again, Power Query will consider that a name with a space at the end is not the same thing as a name with a space without a space at the end. So you can explore all this transformation here. So in transform and then format, you can explore all these options. We have the trim option where that takes care of extra spaces at the beginning and at the end. We have clean that takes care of unwanted characters, non-printable characters. So there's a few options, uppercase, lowercase, if you prefer to put everything uppercase, for example. You can explore these other options to work with in your real work situation. Okay, so let's close and load, and now everything is taken care of. So the good thing now is that to get our report here correct, I just need to right click and do what? Do refresh, right? And there we go. Jill now has an email address that was associated to it. Okay, let me hide his because it's bothering you there. So this was our first request. Let me know if you have questions, and I will be quicker the next few steps. Miho, if you have any questions. Okay, so let's look now at our, is everybody still alive there? I hope you are. Let me know if you have questions, any comments. Let me know if you had used Power Query merge before, and how useful you find that to be. It would be helpful for those who are just starting to use it today. So, second request. So let's come here. We used the left outer. Let me bring this over there. Get some space here. Second request. What happens if a client has two entries with different email address? You cannot see everything there because of the column. The column shrunk here. But what happens? In fact, I can tell you another thing. I can teach you another thing. If you don't want Power Query to resize your columns, you can come here to data and clicking on the table, and then here in properties, there's this setting here that says adjust column width. Let's take that out. Okay, so next, in fact, I'm not going to use that table a lot of times more, but if we were, every time we refresh, the columns won't be adjusting because, for example, I don't want this to shrink and all that. Anyways, so let's go. What happens? Let's imagine that for some reason Jill was entered twice here, and the second time it was given a different email address. For example, the 11 was not there. Let's imagine for some reason. What happens if I refresh? So the queries are built the same way. What happens if I refresh? I will get, see here, we will get the same name. So although Jill only appears once in our first table, the join kind that we used said all the first matching from the second. So it gets us all the matches that it can find on the second table. So in this can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on your situation. You just need to be very aware of that. If you were solving this problem using a VLOOKUP or an XLOOKUP formula, a VLOOKUP wouldn't give us two matches. It would only give us the first one that it would find on the table. In this case, we get the two matches, so be aware that this can happen. Okay, going to delete. this table here, resize the table, this row from the table, deleted. Okay, so second request is done. What happens if a client has two entries with the same email address? If we are using a left outer, we will get the two answers, the two or the three or the four. No matter how many times it appears on the second table, it will give you all the matches, okay? Request number two, who are the new clients? So who are the new clients? Let's go and take this table out of here, data, queries, and connections. And request one, I'm going to load to and change only create connection. So we will keep the result, but it's not showing to us as a table here because now we are going to take care of request two. Request two is, who are the new clients? Well, the new clients are the ones that appear on our sales list, but they are not on the second list. So they are only on the first list, okay? So let's go and create a new query. Data, get data, combine queries, merge. The first table is our sales table. The second table is the client database. The buyer corresponds to the client. So this is the same thing we did before. And now we need to think, well, if I just want the new clients, I just want the left empty, rows only in first, right? So I didn't show you the last time what happened with that other thing, the column. I forgot to mention that. So there we go. We get the clients that are, we get a table with only the names that are in the first table. All the entries, Power Query give us all the entries, even if they are the same name, but the other columns, invoice and total, they are not the same. They are different entries. And if we click here, we can see that all these tables are showing null, null, null. So they are empty. And why is that? Why does that happen? Why is that happen? Does that happen? Well, if the names are not on the second table, then there's nothing to show from there, okay? So the next step is, I don't need this column. I can remove this column. And now, if the request was, give me the names that are the new clients, and I don't want any of the other information about the sales, then I can really just keep this column. Right click, remove other columns. Where is it? Remove other columns, it's in here. And now I don't want to see the same name more than once. So I can come to, for example, remove rows and choose remove duplicates, okay? And that's it. And now we can close and load to. Let's choose a table so that we can see the results in an existing worksheet. It can be here, okay? And there we go. Because now this is a new query, it's shrinking the columns again because I would have to change the properties again for this query, like I did before. Okay, so it's telling me Jack and Karen are the names that are in the first table, not in the second. These are our new clients. And this is exactly what we wanted. I forgot to rename my query here. So this would be request number 2. And now that we solved the problem, we can go to the next request, and I'm going to load to change the loading destination to only create connection so that I don't see the table anymore because we don't need it for now. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments. Let me save the file. And so now I should have my screen maximized. So all clear so far. Yes, used it before. Very useful. Thank you, Wayne, for your comment. And so let's go and move on to this third request. So something, this is not, when I move this column, I put this column one row down. So this request here is anti-left. Okay. So let's see request 3, and we can show the join kind right away. Which old clients made a purchase? So I want to find the clients that are in the client database. That's why I'm calling them old clients. And they made a purchase, so they need to be in here too. So I'm looking for those clients who are in both tables at the same time. Okay, so let's do again. I could also, let me show you, we could also from inside the Power Query editor, we can, if we are here and we expand here on the left, we can see the queries that we already have available. And then here in the home tab, for example, I have merge queries, and I have merge queries or merge queries as new. I want to create a new query, so we can start from there. And it already gave me the sales as the first because I had that query selected. But in fact, oh, that's right. We want the sales as first table, so that's correct. And then client database as the second table. This will be our third request. I'll change the name when it lets me go there. And in this case, I want to find the inner join kind. I want to use the inner join kind, only matching rows. Okay. And it still doesn't let me go further because I haven't told Power Query which column corresponds to which one. So the buyer corresponds to the client. Okay. And we will do okay. And we always get, as a result of a merging, the columns that we had in our first table plus a new column named after the second table that has inside each cell all the rows in the second table that correspond to the same, in this case, the same name. Because these names are, I'm looking for the name that the request is, I want the names of clients who made the purchase. And the names are common to both lists. So I already have the information here. I don't need to bring any of this information. If I wanted the email address, then I would go to expand. And in that circumstance, we would then choose which columns we want from the second table. If I'm not mistaken, the name, the question is just who are the clients. So if that's the case, we don't want to keep any other information. I will review the request in case I forgot something. So if that's the request, we just want the buyer, right? We just want the buyer. That tells us those names. So right click and remove other columns. Let's take Wayne's comment out of the screen so that we have more room. And we have the names. They may contain duplicates, so we can use remove rows and remove duplicates. And there we go. We have our list of names. Close and load to. Let's load to a table, existing worksheet, not a new worksheet, and here. And I didn't name my query. So it called the query merge one. Let's rename this. I should have done that while in Power Query Editor, but I keep forgetting. So request number 3. And let's review the request to see if I got everything. Which old clients made the purchase? These are the clients who made the purchase. These are the names that are in our old client list database, old client database, and old because they were existing before. They are not new, and they also appear in the sales. And that's it. That's the inner join kind. Okay. Any questions? Let me know if there's questions over there. So request number 3 is done, right? Let's go and load to change the destination to only create connection, just to get this table out of the way. In real life, we would probably not do this, but it's just because I want to keep using the same space for the next request instead of having to change to another Excel sheet. Okay. Request number 4. For each client in the database, what was each client in the database? So all the clients in our database, which is in fact our second data table, what was the total purchase amount this month? So from each client in our database, we don't want to know, in this request, we don't care about the new clients, just the old clients. Okay. So let's go and take care of this request. Let's move up. Okay, data, get data, combine queries, merge. First is the sales table. Second is the client database table. The buyer column relates to the client column in the second table. And now I want to get all from the second. I'm not sure if you can see this well. Let me see. I want to get all from the second table matching from first. That's what I want. So it's a right outer join kind. Okay. You get out of the way. Okay. It opens Power Query Editor for us. And it follows the same rule always. So it gives us all the columns from the first table and gave us a new column, a new row with null. This row is for those entries on the second table that have a null correspondence, so they don't have a correspondence on the first table. If we now go and expand, I want to keep the client names and then relate the client names with the purchase amount, right? I'm going to take this out. So what this does, no, I'm going to leave it in again. So that, because before I forgot to mention. So let's leave it in. And now I'm going to mention, you see how the column name was named here? Instead of, I said, give me the client column. Instead of giving me just the client column with just named just like that client as it was on the second table, it created a column. It named the column client database, which was the name of the table, dot, and then client. Excuse me. This is useful when, let's imagine I have the same name on the first table, that the buyer column, instead of having the title being named or the field name being buyer, was client. I cannot have two columns in the same table with the same header. So in a circumstance like that, is useful to have that check marked, checked on, because then I will always get a different name, even if the columns have the same header. Okay, so I want the names and I want the total amount of the purchase. So I'm going to hold Control and select that column. I'm going to get rid of the other columns. I don't need those. Remove other columns. And now I want the total amount for each client. And some clients like Anna and Brian, they made more than one purchase. So if that's the situation, I want to combine these totals. So for example, Anna has here 1,700 and here 4,200. So almost around $600 of purchases in total. So how can we get that combination, that aggregation of the total amounts? So this would be this. We have passed our merging step, but for this request, we need to do more. So we need to go and do here at the Home tab, go to Group By, and then we want to group by client database. So this is the name of our column, group by name, by client name. And we want, let me put this bigger for those who are watching from smaller screens. And here, the new column, I want it to be called total amount or total purchase, whatever you think it's best. And I want to sum everything that is in the column total. That's what we want, right? So now we go OK. Let's zoom out. And there we go. So Anna, those around $6,000 that I mentioned before. Same thing was done for Brian. The clients that didn't make any purchase, they show null. And if we want, we could replace null with 0. Or we can just leave it like that, depending on what we prefer. Okay, so now we can go close and load to, and come back here to a table on an existing worksheet. And here, okay, and there we go. We have a list of all the clients that we already knew from before that are in our database and have the total amount of purchases that they made this month. Okay, even those who didn't purchase anything, we get that answer here. And it's all about choosing the correct join kind every time we need to do a comparison between two lists. Okay, let's move on. If you have questions or comments, let me know. Quick way to change to connection only is to delete the table. Oh, that's a good tip. Thank you. Let's try that then, Wayne. And all the other comments, I think I have addressed them. Thank you. So let's try that. Oh, let's first rename here. Rename, and this was request number 4. And let's use Wayne's tip. So instead of going load to and change only connection only, we can come here and delete. No, it says the range you deleted is associated with a query that retrieves data from an external source. Do you want to delete the query in addition to the range? If you click no, the query will retrieve new data to the worksheet the next time the query is refreshed. No. So not a good way. It could be, maybe Wayne, help me there. Maybe I should clear the table. Let's see if I do clear all. It doesn't give me the option to. So what it's telling me is that next time if I go refresh, it brings me the data back. Say yes. Let's say yes. Let's say yes. So let's delete and say yes. Okay, there you go. It works. I don't think I ever used this tip, so thank you, Wayne. There we go. I'm learning with you, which is what we need here. To, like I said, we are always sharing and learning from each other. Thank you, Wayne. I learned something new today because of you. So connection only. We can see that here in our pane, the connection change to connection only as we wanted. So much faster and much easier. Okay, so not finally, we still have 2 more requests to go. Request number 5, let's see here if we did this correct. So right outer. So now request number 5, which all clients did not make a purchase. So they are old clients, so it means they are in the client database, but they did not make a purchase. Okay, so I want you to think of which join kind we are going to use. Okay, let me know. There's a little bit of delay until I get your responses. So hopefully when we get there, some of you have thought of which join kind we are going to use. Okay, so data, let me save the file just in case, because sometimes Excel just gets crazy. Okay, so data, get data, combine queries, and merge. And we are going to use the same tables. So client database, sales as our first table, client database as the second table, the buyer column corresponds to the client column. Okay. And which join kind are we going to use? And Wayne is giving us the correct answer. Thank you, Wayne. We are going to use right anti-join. That's correct. So we want right anti, meaning only the right, anti-left. I mean, not in the left, right? It's kind of the way I think when I try to remember. But we don't need to memorize them because we have all the descriptions here. So right anti, rows only in second. That's the option we want to choose. Okay. It says excludes 5 of the 7 rows from the second table. Okay. Let's wait. And what's weird? What is that happened here? So we are asking, please give us only the names that are in the second table. And so if we think a little bit, we can see, oh, now I understand this result. If they are on the second table, then they cannot show in the columns that belong to the first table, right? If we click here on this empty space inside the cell, we can see that inside there we have the 2 rows of those 2 people that we know don't belong, that did not make any purchases this month. Okay. So we just have to extract. I'm taking this off here. Usually that's what I do. And I just want the client names. And if that's the request, I just need to check this column. I don't need the other columns. Okay. And at the moment we have all the 4 columns. We don't need the columns with null. In fact, I could have removed them before, just in the previous step, but we can do it now. Remove other columns and close and load to, and there we go. And finally, table, existing worksheet, and here, and okay. And there we go, we have the list we wanted. And remember, we are going through all the different merges, but the idea is to understand them well so that in our jobs we can apply the correct one. And the purpose is to find a way of making the recurring request. So if you get the same request every month to compare the same 2 lists, then most likely Power Query can help you with one of these merges that we are learning today. You just need to find out which one you need to find to create your queries to which one of the data sources you have to compare. And then you just have to do this work once. The next time you click reload. And so, for example, let's say that instead of Carl, this purchase belonged to Brian. So it means that Carl didn't make a car that is in the client database. If the data was like that, like I changed it now, didn't make a purchase. So let's imagine this is the data now for the next month. You just need to click refresh and you get your data updated just like that. You just need to do Power Query work one time, and once it's about to reuse it, most likely you don't need to do much. It's just about refreshing your queries and that's it. Okay, so are you ready for our last query request? So I'm going to rename here request 5, and let's follow this technique. Going to delete and say yes, and it won't load the data next time to the sheet. It will stay as a connection only. Brilliant. Thank you, Wayne. So let's go and do the sixth and last request. And the request is create a list of all the clients, both old clients and new clients, indicating the total amount in purchases. So let's see there, this month. Okay, so now I want all the clients. It doesn't matter if they are new or not. So let's go and do it. Data, get data from combine queries, merge, and the first table will be the sales table. The second table will be the client database table. The buyer column corresponds to the client column. The same steps every time. So just setting up the stage to now do the important decision. Well, these other decisions before were also important. We had to decide the tables that which table is first, which table is second, and which columns are to do the match. In some circumstances, the first and the second table may not be important. They might create a same result. The order of the columns would be switched and all that. But in some circumstances, you still need to think what you need to be the first and what you want to choose as second table. And depending on what you choose, then the join kind may need to be different. Okay. That would not be the case in this situation, because in this situation we want all the columns, all the rows, I mean, all the rows from both queries. And that means that we want a full outer, all rows from both. Okay. So that's our last request here. Okay. Let's see what happens. In this situation, again, we get the first 3 columns of the first table that we chose the sales table to be the first table, and we get a column named after the second table, and we get the matching results there, matching rows contained in each one of those little tables that now we are going to expand. And what is it that we want? We want to get the client name, because the client name does not show all the time in both queries, right? There are names that only show in the first query sometimes, other names that only show in the second query other times. And now we want to find a way of bringing together those two names in this, those two columns into just one. How can we do that? There's certainly different ways of solving this problem. I'm going to use one of the ways, and I forgot to uncheck the name of the column before. So if it happens to you that you forgot to uncheck that checkbox when expanding, if you want to go back and you go here, it won't give you that option anymore. It just lets you choose the columns. If you change your mind about the columns you wanted to expand, you could change your request here. But it doesn't give us the option. So we can come here to the M code in the formula bar and just delete. This is the name of that we will be given to that column. So you see, now we get client. Okay, so now I need to create one column only with buyer and client, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add one column, conditional column, add column, conditional column. And so now it's not working. So let me use this here, not here, there. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to call the new column just name. And I'm going to say if the column buyer is the same as the column client in the second table, then give me one of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter which one. It can be give me the buyer. Okay. Otherwise, so I wanted to see if I can get an intermediate. No. Just 50% here. Okay. So now when we expand, when we zoom, we don't zoom as much. Okay, so let's think about this. If the column name if the name in the buyer and in the client columns are the same, then bring me one of them. I'm choosing to bring buyer. Otherwise, and for now, I'm going to say bring me the buyer, not the value, a column, select a column, bring me the buyer, and then we'll do some changes here. So let's do OK, and let's see what we get here. So this is not quite what we want, right? If it is the same name, give me the name. If it is different, so for example, here is different than there, I want it to concatenate. So Jack plus null, give me Jack, or null plus Carl, give me Carl, okay? So I'm going to change my code here, and probably the null doesn't work, but if it doesn't, we will take care of that. So I'm going to copy this column name, and I'm going to change. So if buyer equals client, then give me the buyer. Else, give me buyer concatenated with client. And because one of them is null or is empty, it should give me just the one that is not empty. We will see that this won't work exactly as we expected. We get everything null because it doesn't work with the null. So we need to have empty. So let's do buyer and client, right click and replace values. And let's do, but we need to do that in the step before. I'm going to move this up, okay? So let's replace null with empty, okay? But let's move this step up. So before we do the conditional column, let's go back. We were here. Then I say every time we have a null, let's put an empty cell. And now every time, and now give me this column where you combine, if there's an empty cell, you combine it with the other column. So we programmed it already, it's in here. And now we have everything that we wanted. So Anna, so for example, here we had Jack, so the client name is Jack. It's the name of a new client. Here we had the name of an old client and it's Carl. Okay, so we got what we wanted. But we are not finished yet. We wanted the total amount of purchases they had. So what we need to do is similar to what we did before. We can, for example, just keep this column and this other column, total. We can select name, control, and total, right click and remove other columns. And you can see that because I selected the name column first, it now gave me the name column in first, in the left, so order first and then column total after. And now we can do a group by as we did before. So home and then choose the option group by, and we have group by name. Give me total amount as the total amount of purchases, and I want to sum the values that are in the total column, and okay, and that's it. So home, close and load to, and table in an existing worksheet here. Okay, and there we go. We have our request. Let's call it rename request 6. Enter, and that's it. Let me come back here to you. Thank you everyone for watching the class. Let me know if you have comments. Let me know if you learned something new today. The purpose for whoever is watching this class, either today or later watching the recording, is to have a way of a very simple example of understanding the different join kind options. Like I mentioned before, it's not always easy to choose the join kind in every situations. Sometimes it's a challenge, and there's other techniques with merging that we could do, but of course the class is already quite long today. In another time, I'll come back with more advanced techniques. For example, what about if I need to match more than one column? What if I need to match the name and the date, for example? That is a situation that happens. What about if I want to know all the names that only exist in one of the tables, but I want for the two tables? So I want just those names that are in first table, or just the names that are in second table. None of the join kinds that we use today really do that. So there's just an extra step that we would have to do to answer that situation. And there's other merging techniques, very interesting, that can be applied in different situations. My intention is to come back here for the next year more often, hopefully once or twice a week, and bring you other examples, both in sometimes in Power Query, like it was the case today, other times in VBA, and always thinking of how those techniques can help you with automating your Excel reports, making it easy for you to replicate those reports every time you need to update them with new data. Okay, so I hope you found this useful. Null and empty are two different, yes, so there's, just looking into the comments here, let me bring this to the front here. So Wayne is telling us that null and empty are two different things. Exactly. That's why we the text, the concatenation that I was asking Power Query to do could not deal with the null, because these are two different entities. Okay, but it can concatenate with an empty cell. So first we changed, we replaced the null by an empty string, and then it worked. Wayne, thank you so much for participating in this conversation today. Definitely learn new things. Nice to go through all the joins options and see the differences. Thanks for the lesson. Cheers and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year to everyone. This has been quite a year, 2020. I'm sure all of us will remember this year for many other years to come, for good and bad reasons. Not only good, bad things happen. There's a lot of interesting things, things that we had to learn, challenges that we had to accomplish to overcome. Definitely a year to remember. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us in this year, who supported me throughout the 2020 year. There was a lot of things going on, and I'm for sure I'm looking forward, as Wayne is saying here, two more in 2021. I'm looking forward to meeting you all and continuing to share what I know to help those who are still giving for their first steps or not. Wayne today helped me here to learn something new as well. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, happy 2021, and we will see you soon. Bye now.